Welcome to Creative Piecemeal. I'm Tammy Takaishi, a board-certified music therapist. Join me each week as a new guest from across the fine and creative arts spheres shares struggles, triumphs, laughs, words of wisdom, and more in authentic, thought-provoking, and inspiring interviews. Hello and welcome to Creative Piecemeal. I'm Tammy Takaishi. Today I am joined by Becky Bell. She is an author, a mom, and a homeschooler, and her debut picture book, The Gnomes of Fibberton, came out in October of 2024, and it takes young readers into the magical, whimsical world of the Fibberton, much like Aesop's fables, and it's a story about a faraway place where mysterious gnomes keep track of lies, half-truths, and tall tales of the children throughout the world. So I'm excited to have Becky here to talk about her book, talk about inspirations, and all sorts of creative things. But first we'll start with what inspired you to write this book in particular.
So the idea for the book came about 10 years ago. Maybe it may have even been a little longer than that, maybe 12 years ago, before I even had children myself. My oldest is 8. But we were at a Christmas thing up in Pennsylvania where my relatives, my in-laws are from. And my niece was not being honest about something. She was fibbing, and her mom actually had complained that she wasn't being very honest lately. That had been happening a lot. And this idea just popped into my head, and I playfully started telling her about how there are these little gnomes, and they hide and sneak around, and they listen to you, and they count all the fibs that you tell. And when you hit the secret number of fibs that is assigned to each child at birth, they will take you to live in Fibberton, where you have to do all of the chores kids have lied and said they did but didn't do. And you have to eat all the vegetables kids lied and said they ate but never ate. And it really got her imagination going, and that was the idea. That was the inception of it.
That sounds really cute. How did you get the ball rolling and, end up drafting it and finding an illustrator and things like that?
It's been quite a process. So, like I said, the idea was like a decade ago, but over the years, I've told the story to different children, like my own children, for example, that are, oldest one's 8 now. Like I said, I've told him this story. I've told his friends, and they actually start playing little games, and it gets their imaginations going, and they start like pretending like, oh, the Fibberton gnomes are listening. And it really, after that started happening, when I saw kids like really like the story, and I saw their little imaginations going, which is one of my favorite things like in the world, to see kids get, the wheels turning, and they're like, oh, is that a gnome over there? And, I just love that. So once I saw how children were reacting to it, over the years, I'm finally like, okay, I want to put this down on paper. I want to actually write this book out, and I need to figure out what goes on each page and the whole creative process. I have to figure out what kind of pictures are going to go on each of the pages. I'm not really an artist, or at least I'm not an illustrator, right? I can't draw very well. I can sketch. So what I ended up doing was drawing sketches and putting the words on each of the pages, and like this really, really rough draft of a book. And I found an illustrator on Fiverr who actually, I went through 3 different illustrators until I found the guy I really liked. And he lives in India, and he just draws these really bright, very detailed pictures. There's no white blanks left in the page. Like, he colors the whole page. The illustrations are really great. I love how the book turned out. Lost my train of thought for a second there. What was the question again? Where was I? I was explaining the process. So anyway, I found my illustrator. He drew the book, got it all down. But one of the other things I did in the background too was added a song to this book, because my children love music too. And there's this one book I have on the shelf that is a Sandra Boynton book called The Bunny Rabbit Show.
I love Sandra Boynton, but I don't know that one.
Yeah, you got it. It's great. So The Bunny Rabbit Show has somebody created a YouTube music video that goes along with the book, and it sings the book. Because, a lot of her books are like sing-songy, but there's no actual song like on the internet or anything. She doesn't provide a song with it. It just kind of looks like the words are sing-songy, and there's even music notes. But anyway, someone made a song for the Bunny Rabbit show, the Sandra Boynton book. My kids, we found it on YouTube. It's not related to Sandra Boynton, like she didn't do it, but they always grab that book because they want to listen to the music. They want to like do the sing along. So that made me want to put a song in the Gnomes of Fibberton so that it would get kids wanting to read the book and get their little imaginations going even more, right? So we created this song that turned out to be really catchy, and it's an earwig that totally gets stuck in your head once you hear it. It goes, that's what gnomes of Fibberton do. Washing the dishes and scraping up goo. That's what gnomes of Fibberton do. And so there's a little sing along in the middle of the book. So it gets kids wanting to read a book. They'll pick this book off the shelf because they want to hear the song. And there's a QR code in the book that goes to the music video. And so it's not only a song, it's not only audio. There is a little animation that we got made, and it's only a minute long, the whole cartoon and song, but it's sing along with the book, and the kids, it gets them wanting to read.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And like I have not had a chance to hear the song and didn't realize there was a song, but I'm captivated. Yeah, I've got some friends with little kids, and so yes, I think it'd be fun to get them all those gifts. And your book, of course, came out in October of 24, but has won some awards: the Firebird Book Awards first place for children's fable, the 2024 Pencraft Book Awards, as well as the Paris Book Festival honorable mention. What was it like getting that outward praise for something that you were doing, for yourself and for your family?
Very flattering. Very flattering to get awards. I'm not sure of another word to describe it, just kind of flattering. Yeah.
Yeah. I always wonder because, part of the creative process, a lot of people deal with like imposter syndrome or just general self-doubt, or wondering like, okay, like I think this is good. Do other people think it's good? And, I feel like winning awards is sometimes a nice validation of being like, okay, I'm onto something,
Yeah, that was the word that came to mind. Validation. There's a lot of validation because you're going out on a limb when you write something and you put your words down and you put all this effort and work into getting I got the book drawn up and had someone, I came up with lyrics to a song even, and like all this stuff. And it was really validating. It was nice to get a couple of first place awards and honorable mention. And I think we actually have I think we have a second place award out there too for, children's fable book. I can't remember which award we got. A few. What a great problem to have. I can't remember all of. It's fantastic. Yeah,
it is really awesome to have. Yeah. If you're able to talk about it, do you have any other projects in the works coming up?
I do. I have. I'm a little bit debating on which book I want to do next. I've already started. I have ideas for 5 total books in the series of the Gnomes of Fibberton. So the Gnomes of Fibberton, the original book that we've come out with, that's already released. But then I have an idea for The Tunnel of Truth is kind of the sequel. It explores redemption and how it can be really hard to tell the truth. And the Tunnel of Truth is basically like there's a tunnel in Fibberton that the gnomes can go through, but they have to tell the truth. And it's really hard to get to the tunnel. And there's all these obstacles in their way because it can be really difficult to actually tell the truth sometimes when you've lied. What a tangled web we weave, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of, I'm not sure if I want to do that one next or if I want to do, and I've already started it, but I also I kind of started 2 at once. Santa's Other Helpers is the other one I've started as well, which is the Gnomes of Fibberton basically deal with the naughty department, right? They are not those happy little elves that get to like wrap presents and make toys and all that fun stuff. They have to deal with the naughty list, and they're special agents of the FIB is what I've called it, the Fib Investigation Bureau.
That is adorable.
And there's going to be like a most wanted list of fibbers and, like they work under the Department of Naughty. So I wasn't sure which one I should come out with next, but then there's also ideas for 2 more that are that I haven't really started. The Boy Who Didn't Do It, which is kind of one of your basic lies right? That kids kind of tell, I didn't do it, didn't do it. And then the other book idea is Too Many Tall Tales. The girl that tells all the tall tales that like she can lift cars, she got abducted by a UFO and she found buried treasure. And she's the girl that tells those kind of stories. So that's my ideas for upcoming books that hopefully come out sooner than later. I need to focus and decide which one I want to do next for sure.
What is something that you find to be most joyful about the creative process?
Oh, that's a tough question. I kind of appreciate the end the most, where I see the results of what I've done and the benefit that it brings to other people enjoying the book. I just had somebody tell me yesterday I was on a play date with a bunch of mom friends, and one of them, she told me her daughter has been reading the book like every night. She's like, this is the book we're reading. I want to read this every night. And that was just so flattering to me. It brings me a lot of joy, that and seeing the kids like play little games based on the Gnomes of Fibberton and the funny things they come up with. Seeing and also I got this one review one time from someone that they told me after they read this book to their daughter, they had no idea that she was not being very honest, apparently. And she just told them all kinds of things that she was hiding from them. They got a full on confession from her. And
wow.
I just, I like to see the results of that. That's my favorite part of the whole process. Is like, okay, I did all this work and now I get to kind of sit back and watch the results and see people enjoy it. Oh my goodness. To see people enjoy it is great. To see kids' eyes light up when they're like, what? There's little gnomes? Or to even hear them come up to me and be like, so wait a minute, are they hide? Where do they hide? Where are they? Do you think? And just seeing their little imaginations go is fantastic. I love that. I love that.
That is really cute. And I love that it's making waves, not only with awards, but with families, and that is really great.
Trying to make a difference, right?
Of course, everyone in their own way, using their talents, and I think that's super. So people don't always like to talk about the unfun side of the creative process, but what is something that you struggle with or are working to get better at in terms of the creative process?
I think staying focused, trying to be inspired are always the hardest part of the creative process, right? And that's actually a problem I'm having right now. I don't know which book, which one should I go with next? And I even wrote like half of one of the books. And then I'm like, no, but this one really is like interesting me more. And I want to write this one right now because this one is piquing my interest. And then I just go, oh, well, the Tunnel of Truth seems like it'd be more of a sequel, like it should be next. But the Santa's Other Helpers is so fun. And I think people would enjoy that more. And that's actually kind of where I'm torn right this moment in the creative process, something I'm struggling with.
Yeah. Understandable. I think for me, because I also love to write, and while I don't have anything published, when I'm in the writing mode and I've got like 6 different, like I've got 6 completed manuscripts, and then I have 6 or 7 like incomplete, like in pieces manuscripts. And I'm always asking my friends, like, which ones should I work on during the limited time that I have? Because I want to use my time wisely, but I don't always know which one's going to be like, I know which ones I love, but I don't know which one's necessarily going to be like a commercial success, hypothetically. So I ask my reader, my friends who've been readers for it, and everyone's got a different answer. I'm like, that is not helpful. So,
Right.
In the end, I just go with what feels right to me and what I feel passionate about in that moment of inspiration and the time that I have. And, you might be in a situation where you're working on both books at once. Who knows?
And that is ending up that's what I end up doing. But that's definitely, that's very true. I'm ending up just like working on both of them at once. But I feel like when I tell, part of that too is in the creative process, when you tell your ideas to different people, whichever idea you're kind of most passionate about, you're probably going to get more responses from people because you're more passionate about it. So you're sharing it with more passion, right? So when I talk about like the Santa's Other Helpers idea, I get more passionate and I kind of get people to oh yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, you should do that one. But yeah, I think that that plays a role in that. And maybe we should just stop fighting and just stop fighting the left brain and go with the right brain and do what we're inspired to do at the moment and let the juices flow, right?
Yeah, I'm always a fan of that, of just going where your creative path is taking you in that moment, because you're not always going to be tuned in so intently to that creative like spark. So when you've got it, why not work on whatever it is it's tuning you into, and honor those feelings, honor those thoughts and creative things. And then when it's, pushing you a different direction, honor that, like, why not? Life is already hard. Why make it harder? Why fight those feelings?
Yeah. Don't fight the urge. Like I said, let the creative juices flow when you have them.
Yep. I was curious, what's your background? What did you study in school, and how did that prepare you to do what you do today?
Oh, so I thinking about it, I don't know if any of it, how did that happen? I don't know how I snowballed so I did liberal arts and sciences. And I was a sign language interpreter for several years.
Oh, cool.
I did that freelance at church, actually, we had some people join our church that were deaf, and no one was really, that we had one person that could communicate with them. And I was just kind of inspired to learn their language and start talking to them so that they felt, more welcome. And I just picked it up and started doing sign language, and I did it for like 7 years. But other than that, I feel like kind of just boring. Like I did HR. It's not a very exciting. My husband and I started companies, and we've been like business people and stuff, boring stuff, and since 2010. And we stopped doing that a couple years ago. And I think maybe I just got kind of like I needed something to focus on. I needed another company. I needed another thing to do, even though I have like 3 small kids at home. For some reason, I'm like, I need to work. I need to do some kind of like other work than just focus on the kids. And I kind of want them to see me working and being creative, and not just, I don't know, not that way. I mean, I homeschool, so I'm busy all the time, but I needed to be busy all of the time, I guess. So I started doing this. So I really, in answer to the question, I don't know how I really don't know from my past. It almost doesn't even like, I can't relate it, but.
And that's okay though. I mean, like our paths sort of, sometimes we end up in a place where we never thought we'd be, but it's exactly where we're supposed to be,
Yeah. Yeah, things just happen the way they happened. It all started from telling, my niece a story that popped into my head one Christmas when she wasn't being very honest. And then the story stuck with me. And through the years, I would tell it to different kids, and they just seemed to like it so much that I eventually wrote it down. It took me quite a few years to finally do it.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you've been feeling burned out, stressed, overwhelmed, or exhausted, the resources and courses at the Self-Care Institute are here to support you. The Self-Care Institute was founded by Dr. Ami Kunimura and provides support for individuals and organizations with burnout prevention, burnout recovery, and stress management. I've personally taken a few of these courses and found them to be super helpful, both professionally and personally. The care you give yourself matters just as much as the care you give to others. But if self-care is difficult for you, you're not alone. And the Self-Care Institute is here to support your well-being, resilience, and sense of fulfillment at work and at home. For more information, visit selfcareinstitute.com or go to the show notes and click on the link. Better late than never, though, and it looks like such a lovely book, and I'm so excited about the next ideas that you have. They definitely sound really cool. So
yeah, I am excited to actually get them all written down.
I was wondering, what is a book that you loved as a child that really stuck with you?
It's not a picture book. It's so personal. It's cheesy. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
I remember that one.
by Judy Blume. I
Yeah.
think I read that book. I don't know how many times. A lot, because those issues were very important to me when I was like 10. But I also really I love Charlotte's Web. I remember really liking that book as well and reading like the Boxcar Children series.
Yeah, I loved the Boxcar Children too.
I was a reader. I was a bit of a bookworm. I would disappear to my room with books and sit there and read when I was a kid.
Me too. Me too. It's always nice to like have good memories with books when you're a young kid, and I've not gone back to reread any of the ones I liked when I was younger. Have you done that at all?
I have not. And I imagine if I did that, I would probably laugh at myself a little bit. Just like the things I was so concerned about, like I said, the Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret book, loving that so much. Like, as I'm a little older now, those issues don't concern me as much, but it might help me, honestly. It's probably a good idea if I did that it'll help me bring me back to relating to my children a little bit better today. That may help me think more about what they're actually concerned about, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's such a groundbreaking and like pivotal book for a young person to read, like it's not changed at all. Even though technology changes and life changes and gets more complex for young people, like the heart of that book is still the same.
Yeah. I think I think they're making a movie based on, I can't remember if it's it's a Judy Blume book. It's one of the Judy Blume books. I loved all her stuff. But Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret was super special to me. Yeah, I'll have to both watch it and reread it just so I can even go back to trying to relate to my kids. Because it's hard sometimes. You grow up and you don't you don't worry about the things your kids worry about anymore. They're not. And it's easy to be probably even a little flippant about, oh, well, that's not important. Like if they're worried about like some kid didn't play with them on the playground or like that, it doesn't matter. Don't worry. They're just focused on themselves. But they don't understand that. They don't, they're still in it when they're little.
Of course, it's a lot heavier of an issue when you're a younger kid, and everything is a really big deal because you're learning it for the first time and feeling it for the first time sometimes. I was wondering if you could be any fictional character for a day, who would you be?
Oh, that's deep. What fictional character? It's gonna take me a second.
That's okay. Honestly, I don't know who I would be, so
it's funny, but what comes to mind is because we're talking about the book, to be a gnome of Fibberton, I have a character in the Gnomes of Fibberton who's like at the end of the book who looks a little different than the other gnomes, and he's the mayor of Fibberton. And I think it would be interesting to be the mayor of Fibberton. Though it's a miserable life, at least he's in charge of the other gnomes that have like all their bench, there's not a soft spot to sit. They, it's warm, it's hot, they're sweaty down there. All their toys are broken. They have to eat vegetables and do chores all day. But to be in charge might be interesting. He's always come across as an interesting character to me.
Oh, there you go. What is one of the most interesting things that you've encountered so far in terms of reception with your book? Like, something that a parent said, something that a child said.
So there was one review that I got on the book. I got to look it up really quick. It's on Amazon, and it was so funny. Tell me I can do this fast.
And while we're on the topic of reviews, listeners, it's so important to not only review authors, both traditionally published, hybrid published, and independently published authors, and pre-orders, because they really make a huge difference in authors getting, getting continued sales and getting continued contracts. So just a little plug there for reviews and pre-orders.
Yeah, absolutely. Reviews are everything. This review I think it's possibly one of my favorites that I've ever gotten. After reading this book with my niece, who's 4, she told her sister 7, "Don't lie or you'll have to do chores." To which she replied, "Mom and Dad must tell a lot of lies."
Oh, Oh, that's adorable. That
It
is
was really
adorable.
cute. I never connected that kids would ever think that. Yeah, we do, mom and dad, we do a lot of chores. So maybe kids are going to assume that we must have told a lot of lies.
Right? That's their penance as adults.
Right.
Laundry again? What?
The dishes, the sweeping, all of it. Yeah. We're just big liars. That's why
That is cute. That is really adorable. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that either.
but it is. So the book, I'd have to say, is kind of, it's an allegory, really. And I came up with the story, and it wasn't even, I don't know how other people come up with stories and like form like the deeper meaning behind things when they're writing. Do they notice the deeper meaning as they're writing things? I don't always notice it, but when it's done, I'm like, oh, there's kind of a deeper meaning. And to me, there's like this allegory in the Gnomes of Fibberton. There's a specific number that's assigned to each kid that's different for each kid. And it's not just for kids. This is kind of for grown-ups too. We all have a special secret number. It could be 102 for this person. It could be 51 for this other person. That if you hit that 51st bad choice, you never know which one it is, but it can lead you down a bad path in life. And you can kind of become miserable if you hit that certain number, and you're never going to know what the number is. And that's why I feel like the book it worked out. It's allegorical to life in general, not just for lying, but maybe making some bad choices in life. You never know which bad choice or how many bad choices is going to actually make you go down the wrong path. And it's kind of hard to get back. So
Yeah, that is really interesting. And, to your point, I don't know. I think it really depends on a case by case basis if someone thinks of something like super deep when they're creating it,
Right.
It could be like subconscious and then you realize it later,
Yeah, I've wondered it like reading. I remember thinking that when I was in college and I was in like a literature class and reading. I can't remember what I was reading. It was probably something like, I don't know, maybe Emily Dickinson or Nathaniel Hawthorne or something. Like, it was an American lit class. And I was just like, did they really realize did they know that our teachers were going to analyze this to death one day? and that they were going to say that they meant all these things. Did they really mean those things when they wrote it? I remember being very curious about that.
Yeah. Me too. I also remember that about music, like I always think of that like about lyrics or even like classical pieces, like when we analyze it, it's like, did they really mean to do this really cool music thing that didn't exist before this piece,
Yeah. Did they mean to even say the words in this certain way? Was it meant to be like a haiku or whatever? And it just came out that way, right? Are we putting more on it than was intended? Nevertheless, I think that it's probably valuable to find those things and those tidbits.
Yeah. And that's part of the beauty about creating, though, it can just, it's limitless in some aspects.
Yeah. That's true. It can keep giving, the gift that keeps giving, right?
So we talked about, books that were integral to your childhood, but what is something that you've read in the past year that really impacted you?
Oh my. So I have 3 small kids at home. I do not get the chance to read very often, especially because I have a baby now he's turning 1 in like 2 weeks. So I regrettably don't get a chance to read very often. The last book I read was something, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's the Mrs. Polifax books.
No, not familiar.
She's this elderly lady that goes on adventures, kind of. She's just like has this like normal life, and then one day she so happens to fall and become a spy for the country, and there's this whole series of books they're interesting, but that's pretty much the only thing that I have gotten to read. I think in the last year I started reading those and they were really good, and I read like 3 or 4 of them, but then got sidetracked. And well, actually I started writing I was doing that at the same time I was reading, I was writing. So, and then this process totally took over because once the book came out, I didn't realize that, like, probably about, in my opinion, and I think in most authors' opinions, if they, have done this before, 95% of the process is marketing and promotion once your book comes out. About 5% is like that creative process at the beginning. And then once you're done with you get it down, then you have to promote it, which is actually a lot of the creative process. You do have to be creative to promote it, and you have to come up with ideas to post about on social media and do all this marketing and stuff. So that is what has happened this year, which kind of made it very hard for me to read any other books, regrettably.
Oh. Well, hopefully in your new year, you'll be able to carve out some time to do more reading for pleasure.
That would be nice. It would be nice to be able to read some more books. And I think, I'm glad that we talked about that, because that made me realize that when I was reading was when I had my creative juices flowing more and was able to put more pictures down, put more, put the words down on the page and everything. And if I do that again, that'll probably help me get to figuring out which book I need to do next and how it should all come together.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple more questions. What is something on your bucket list that you recently crossed off?
You ask very deep questions.
Especially before coffee, right?
Well, technically it's like almost 11 here. I'm East Coast, but bucket list. What have I crossed off my bucket list? Oh, no, I can't say that. I was going to say turning 40. I made it this far.
There you go.
I turned 40. I had a third child this last year, right? Which was like 5 days before I turned 40.
Oh.
So I
So
was
birthday buddies, right?
Yes. I really wanted him to be born on my birthday. My birthday's February 7th. And I really wanted him to be born on my birthday, but came out 5 days early, and he's a groundhog baby instead. So he's born February 2nd, but that'll be fun when that comes up in a few weeks. We get to celebrate our birthdays together.
Oh, that is really sweet.
I think that's something I think that counts as things I've crossed off I don't know if I have an actual bucket list. Maybe I should sit down and create one. That's probably why the question felt very deep to me, because I had never sat down and actually been like, okay, what do I want to do?
Yeah. And it might end up being like a really big bucket list. You never know.
It could be. I probably want to do some traveling that I have not done. And I can't really do with small kids right now, but maybe eventually something I would like to do.
I am curious though, where would be the first place that you'd want to travel?
Oh, I love history. So I am very big into British history and Egyptian history. And I've always wanted to see the Sistine Chapel. Those are a few different places that I guess I do have. Look, I already have 3 on my bucket list of places that I really, really want to go. I love history. I read very dry historical documents is another thing that I'll read. Yes, because I like them. And I'd like to learn the facts of history, like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. I have gone through and read because I like to learn about the formation of England. And I just like to know like what happened, because England wasn't always united. It used to be, in these different, what were they called? I mean, I guess kingdoms. United Kingdom, right, is what it's called now, because there were like all these there was Wessex and Northumbria and stuff. And I actually enjoy learning those things. And at one point I wanted to be a history teacher to the deaf because it's sign language. Those were both kind of 2 passions of mine.
It's really cool. I love when I interview guests and like all these almost like hidden talents and not secret, but like passions come out that they love that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and that's fantastic. Like I don't necessarily I love history. I wouldn't necessarily go read those documents myself, but I love that you love that, because someone has to read it. Someone has to continue like educating and teaching people about it and, passing on that wisdom.
Yeah, they're very dry. They're terribly dry. And when I like try to read them, I do have like moments where I'm like, oh my goodness, like really, you have no idea how many Ethel peoples there are in England back in these times. And like when the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles are written, they named everybody Ethel. It was Aethel, Ethel Red, Ethel Wolf, Ethel Stan, Ethel, like they just put Ethel on everybody's name. Anyway. Anyway, I'm like, which Ethel is it? And then it is a dry document, but then you get to points where it's like, oh, that's interesting. So that's when Alfred came about and he united the kingdoms and everything. It was just like, that was the culmination to me. I'm like, oh, okay, this is it. It's like I read all the dry stuff just to get there so I could hear about or read about rather how the United Kingdoms like became England and how it all started. So anyway, that's
you seem like you'd be a documentary watching kind of lady.
Oh, I love every history documentary. And I sit there and I do pick them apart a little bit. Like, I don't think that's accurate. Like, and some of it, because you can't believe everything. Just because it's in a documentary doesn't mean it's all completely, accurate. They can say whatever they want. They're people just like us. So I'm like, I think I read differently somewhere. I'll kind of pick things apart a little bit. But I do, I'm a homeschool mom too. So I watch a lot of documentaries and I'm so excited. Actually, my 8-year-old he's like starting to be interested in history with me.
Oh, nice.
So I'm getting him to start watching those documentaries with me and stuff that aren't just about dinosaurs because he loves the dinosaur documentaries. But yeah, I love history. It is a big passion of mine, which is probably too why the Gnomes of Fibberton is like based. If you read the Gnomes of Fibberton, so the premise is every kid is born with a secret number of fibs they can tell before they get carried away to Fibberton, where they have to do all the chores and eat all the vegetables kids lied about. And it's kind of reminiscent of like a Grimm's fairy tale or Aesop's fables, where there's like a meaningful consequence that happens in the story that I think is missing from a lot of children's books now. Like, I don't know. They're just very feel good. A lot of children's books are just very feel good, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of those, like the Bunny Rabbit Show, like I was talking about earlier. We sing that and it's a fun, but there's not like kind of like a
moral of the story kind of thing.
Yeah. There's not a moral to it. And that's probably, that probably does stem from possibly from my love of history. I never connected that I would have done a story kind of like old fashioned, like a medieval kind of story. It gets kids. Part of the reason I wrote the book too was that it's a entertaining, fun kind of way to get kids thinking about honesty. Whereas, instead of just saying you shouldn't lie, you need to be honest, blah, 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 and lecture a child. Instead, this is a story with a fun little, tale. And I tried to make it funny a little bit where, to do the chores you lied and said you did, but didn't do. And you eat the vegetables that you don't want to eat. And every time I say that, when the kids are like, yuck, because it's funny. But it also at the end, since there's a consequence and there is an ending that they have to process and think about, okay, do I want to tell lies? Do I want to be honest? Is there a consequence? It's hopefully getting them to more critically think was kind of my point behind it. That like maybe they'll consider, okay, do I want to deal with the consequences of not being honest? Right. Just a lesson all of us could learn sometimes, not just littles, but.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. Well, Becky, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show today and talk about your book, The Gnomes of Fibberton. It is out everywhere, both in a physical book as well as ebook. And you can check the links in the show note to learn more about her and to purchase the book. But anything else before we go?
I don't think so. I think we've touched on everything and then some.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And again, listeners, check the show notes and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Creative Piecemeal.
We hope today's episode left you feeling inspired. This podcast is independently created and produced by the host, Tammy Takaishi. More details about today's guest can be found in the show notes, along with links to the podcast's socials, merch store, and ways to support arts organizations AHA Broadway and New Normal Rep, both near and dear to Tammy's heart. Don't forget to visit creativepiecemeal.com, the official podcast website, where you can leave fan mail, write a review, explore Tammy's blog, and discover the growing collection of episodes. Special thanks to our audio engineer, Alex Repetti. Additional narration by Dante Jace. Let's keep celebrating creativity in all its forms.